Hello again, welcome back, good to see you. So today what I want to do is give you some tips and tricks for photographing your artwork. Now this is not going to be for making super high-end fine prints or anything like that, but just if you want to share your artwork on social media, or maybe you're sent home now for the semester and you have to upload your images for your teachers to see. So here I want to show you some tips just to get a nice clean image, and hopefully that will be a help to you. So for starters, let's talk about an outdoor setup. It's a nice sunny day. This morning was more overcast. Sometimes I like shooting my artwork on an overcast day. It's kind of like God's big softbox light that gives a very even, neutral lighting over everything. But with color images like this painting here, sometimes having the sunlight is going to give you more vibrant color. So what I've done here is I set the painting up, or drawing, whatever you're working on. Once again, maybe more applicable for paintings if you want that color to show up. But what you want to avoid is getting any type of weird cast shadows on your artwork. So for that reason, the sun is facing directly at my artwork. If I had my artwork tilted to one side or the other, I'll be getting some strange shadows. If you want to show off the texture of a piece, that might be interesting to show the thickness of the paint or something like that. But most of the time I have more success if I just have the sun pointing right at my painting. Another thing you want to consider is how is the painting held in there. So I've got my French easel set up. If you don't have an easel, you can just set your artwork on a ledge. You know, do your best to set it upright, straight, so it's not tilting. So here, what if I set this way back inside that panel holder there? Now you see this big cast shadow. You're losing some of the information of your painting. So what I've done is I tried to minimize anything that's going to obscure my view of my piece. Even this little holder up here is casting a bit of a shadow. Another thing you're going to want to make sure is to take your artwork out of the frame, especially on a sunny day like this. The sun is going to cast shadows from that frame onto your artwork. That can also be distracting. You can crop it out, but then you're going to lose part of your image. So here I've got my painting facing directly to the sun. I've got minimal shadows cast by what I have holding my painting. Now I'm going to just take these photos with my phone and I'll float them in so you can see what they look like. But what I want to do is I go to my camera, and I'm sorry, I don't think you'll be able to see this on the camera there. But I go to my camera, I rotate my phone to whatever orientation the painting is. So this is more horizontal, so I'm going to turn my phone sideways, and I want to step back and zoom in as much as I can, not to an extreme degree. I don't want to be too far away, but if I just go to my camera and I go right here without zooming in, I'm going to get lens distortion. You'll get that fisheye effect around your artwork. So I want to step back a little bit and zoom in, and what that does is it flattens the image out and reduces any of that kind of odd distortion or curving. So I'll just kind of explain what I'm doing here, and I'm sorry, it might be out of focus as I step closer to the camera. So I'm going to zoom in, and I also want to make sure, whoops, that I don't knock over my easel, but I want to make sure that I am as close to squared up with my painting or my drawing as I can. I don't want to be way above it and angled down or angled up or angled to the side. I want it to be just about as parallel as possible, and that's also going to help avoid any type of distortion. So here I'm going to zoom in, and then most phones you can actually tap for exposure. So if there's a dark area, you want to see it lighter, then tap on that area so you can get more exposure on that. And then I usually take several photos and just pick the best one out of those. And there's some great editing apps you can get on your phone, like Snapseed, or even just whatever photo viewer comes with your phone. So yeah, trying to get as square as I can here. I don't want to be way above it or tilted. Okay, so there I took a couple photos. I should have something that's good out of there. I'll also take a few bad examples and I'll show you what not to do, what to do. Now here in my yard there is some shade in the back there. Maybe I'll set the easel up over there and also show you what it looks like when you're set up in the shade. So the shade is going to avoid any type of glare. So I mentioned you want to make sure your artwork is out of the frame, especially if it's behind glass. It's nearly impossible to get a really good photo of your artwork if it's behind glass. You're getting all kinds of reflections. Or if it's something like an oil painting, maybe you just painted it, it's still wet, you're going to get all this kind of glossy look over it. So you want to make sure it's out of the frame. Try to avoid high reflections like that, and working on an overcast day or in the shade can also avoid some of those reflections. So I'm going to move, I'm going to set up and take a photo while I'm set up in the shade over there. Over there it's not really going to matter what direction my canvas is turned, as long as I don't get some of those weird shadows. But I'll show you what that looks like taking it in the sun and taking it in the shade, and then we'll move inside and I'll show you some things you can do to photograph inside your house. Some other things I want to mention before going inside and showing you how to shoot inside would be drawings. So a drawing, it might be a good idea to tape it to a larger board, especially if you're outside and it's windy. I've also taped it down here to avoid any flapping around as I'm trying to get a good photograph. So here I just have this pad of newsprint clipped onto this big masonite board, and then some tape on the bottom. So taping your drawing to a board could keep it from flopping over if you wanted to do this outdoor lighting, and they could keep it nice and sturdy. Alright, so now we're inside. I'm going to do some photographing of the artwork inside the house. I'm just going to lay it on my kitchen table here and try to take some photos of it again. I really do prefer if I can get the artwork upright like I had on the easel outside, but you might not always have that opportunity. Inside, I think even more than outside, you have to be really careful with the direction of light and how it's casting shadows. I'll show you once again some bad examples of misplaced light, where you might have great light on your artwork, but as soon as you move up to take a photo, you're casting a shadow on your artwork. And it's kind of like the groundhog, where if you see your shadow on your art, you might have to have another 4 weeks of art school. Kidding, it's just a joke. Okay, but anyways, you do want to avoid casting shadows onto your artwork as you're photographing it. And still the same things apply. You want to try to be as parallel with your art as you can. There are different setups. I've seen professional artists where they have big bays of fluorescent lights, and they have them kind of shining at each other, and then you'll have your artwork in the center, so that light kind of strafes across from both angles. Or I've also seen if you take incandescent lights, and I have some house lamps here, and you kind of angle them both to point directly at the artwork, it's going to cancel out shadows from either side. So those are some tips that can help. So I've got a light above me here. I don't think you can see it, but it's on a fan. If I turn that on, I'm going to be casting my shadow down on my art. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these lights here. I'm going to shine them, one from the right and then one from the left. I might actually change bulbs just to make sure I've got the same wattage. And so that gives a pretty nice even light on your work. And then you are also going to have to consider where it's positioning. Right now I'm casting a shadow on my work, so I might need to move the lights around until I don't cast a shadow on that anymore. So I'm going to take some photos. I will float those in so you can see some good and bad examples. Also, focus, make sure that it's in focus, make sure it's not overexposed or underexposed. And those are some things that should help you as you take some photographs for your artwork. Please let me know if you have any questions, or maybe if you've got some good ideas on how to photograph your work. I'd love to hear that in the comments, and we can kind of help teach each other in the comments if you want. So that'll be about it for today. I'll take some photos here, put those up after the video, and you can see some good and bad examples. Okay, a couple of things I forgot to mention. Flash, you want to shut your flash off when you're photographing your artwork, because that can also create some hot spots and glare and make it very difficult for people to see your artwork. And then also here I have repositioned my lamps. They're actually a little bit in front of me where my artwork is. That way when I put my hands over here to take a photograph, that I'm not going to be casting a shadow. So that works really well. And we talked about temperature of lights in my last video on setting up a makeshift studio, and these are those daylight bulbs. So it's just a they're a great value Walmart 60-watt daylight bulbs, and so that gives you that nice cool even lighting. It might not be a perfect 5500 Kelvin, but it's going to give you some even lighting so you can see the true colors of your work. If you've got a really warm orange light, it will also affect how the colors are going to show up. You can, once again, you can all fix those things on editing programs, but sometimes it's easier to just have nice lighting and not have to worry about too much editing. Okay, so now I will finish taking photos and put those up for you.